Before there was light, before the desert knew the touch of morning, there was Amun. He was not born in the blaze of creation, nor carved from the dust of gods. He was the breath before the first word, the silence that made space for sound. When the universe was nothing but a thought half-formed, Amun existed, unseen, untouched, unmeasured. They called him the Hidden One. But hidden from whom? From man, or from the gods themselves? In the hush before dawn, the priests whispered that Amun's power was too vast to be shown. They said his face could blind the sun, his voice could bend truth, and his presence could make even chaos bow. Yet he remained still, waiting, watching. No temples could contain him, no name could define him. For Amun was not a god of image, he was the god of absence, the invisible current that shaped all that came after. Before Ra ever rose across the sky, Amun moved in silence beneath the world, a shadow that gave meaning to light. It was he who wrapped creation in mystery, he who made the sun itself question its own glory. The ancients believed he did not wish to be found because to find him was to find the truth too great for the living. His temples were built like mazes, his names written in fragments, as if the act of searching was the only way to honor him. And in that emptiness, power waited. For every light needs its hidden source, and every god, no matter how radiant, is born from what the world cannot see. Amun, the watcher before dawn, the hidden sun that breathed before the first morning. There came a moment when the hidden could no longer stay unseen, when silence itself reached for a voice, and in that breath between stillness and fire, Amun found Ra, the blazing crown of the heavens, the god who rose every morning to remind men that life endures. His fire touched all things, his light exposed every secret. Yet even he, the great eye of creation, cast shadows he could not understand. And within those shadows, Amun waited. The priest said it was no meeting by chance, that the sun sought the unseen because light without mystery burns empty, and the hidden sought the sun because power without form remains forgotten. When they touched, the world trembled. The unseen and the seen, the silence and the flame became one breath. Amun-Ra, the invisible made visible, the god who could stand in daylight and still remain beyond reach, the one who ruled both what men worshipped and what they feared to know. The people saw a union too perfect to question, but the wise understood. This was no merging of equals. It was the binding of opposites, a truth that whispered something deeper about existence itself. The Egyptians said every soul carries the same struggle, between what it shows and what it hides, between the radiant mask and the quiet force beneath it. Amun-Ra was their reflection of that balance, the proof that one cannot shine without shadow, nor hide without light. His temples were painted gold to honor Ra, yet their inner chambers sank into darkness to honor Amun. Even in worship, they built paradoxes, because the divine is not one or the other, it is both. In the union of shadow and flame, Amun-Ra became the pattern of the human spirit, the reminder that your power is not in what the world sees, but in what it cannot. And so the sun rose each day blazing with the memory of the unseen God who gave it meaning. Two forces, now one, the light that ruled the world and the silence that ruled the light. They said Amun-Ra was everywhere. His breath in the wind, his gaze in the sun, his hand in the rise of kings. Yet when you entered his temple, there was no statue to greet you, no eyes carved in gold, no face to bow before, because Amun-Ra was never meant to be seen. The priests hid him, not out of doubt, but out of fear. Fear of a power so complete it could dissolve the line between God and man. To them, Amun's strength was not in what he revealed, but in what he withheld. They believed that to name him fully was to invite his gaze, and that to see him was to be unmade. So they built walls within walls, chambers within chambers, each darker, each quieter. The deeper one walked, the less there was to see. And in that darkness, they said, his presence grew stronger. In the heart of Thebes, his high priests whispered his secret names only in silence, lips moving without sound. They guarded his mysteries like fire behind stone, not because they wanted to honor him, but because they feared what might happen if his truth escaped the walls. They told the people Amun-Ra watched from the sun, yet they never looked up themselves. They spoke of him as the father of creation, yet they forbade his image from touching open air. Some say it was reverence, others control. For if Amun-Ra's presence truly filled all things, what need was there for temples? What need for priests? A God who lives in every shadow leaves no throne for those who claim to speak in his name. So they veiled him, not with cloth, but with secrecy. They wove silence around his worship like a curtain no one dared lift. And over time, people began to believe that holiness required distance, that the divine must remain hidden to stay pure. But silence has its own voice. It lingers, echoing through time. Amun-Ra became the unseen heartbeat of faith, the God who needed no face to rule the world. Perhaps they hid him to protect his power, or perhaps to protect themselves from the truth, that what they feared in him was already within them. For the unseen is never gone. It waits patient and watching behind every prayer whispered into the dark. They called him the king of the gods, yet Amun-Ra sat on no throne. He needed none. His rule did not come from the gold of crowns or the weight of armies. It came from something far greater: presence. When pharaohs spoke, they claimed their words were his. When they walked among their people, they moved as his shadow. The rulers of Egypt called themselves sons of Ra, but in secret they knelt to Amun, the god who ruled from behind the veil, the one whose eyes never opened, yet saw everything. In the desert where silence burns louder than sound, Amun-Ra reigned, not through command, but through the unseen order that held the world together. The wind was his messenger, the heat his reminder, the shifting sands his army, erasing empires that forgot who truly ruled. No rebellion could reach him, no hand could strike him, no mortal could claim to stand beside him. For how do you rise against what you cannot see? How do you challenge a God whose throne is the air you breathe? The pharaohs wore his image, but they knew it was never theirs to keep. Their crowns were borrowed light, their power a reflection of his hidden flame. Each morning when the sun climbed over the horizon, they bowed, not to the star itself, but to the will behind it, the invisible hand that raised it from the horizon and set it upon the sky. In the cities, people praised the light, but the priests understood. The light was only the echo. The true God was the silence that commanded it to rise. Amun-Ra ruled Egypt without showing his face. His law was not written, it was felt. The desert obeyed him. The Nile followed his rhythm. The sky turned because he willed it to turn. Every storm that passed, every season that ended, whispered the same truth. That order itself was his empire, an empire made not of walls, but of balance. And those who broke that balance vanished into the sands. Even the greatest pharaohs, men whose names filled monuments, bowed before him in death. Their tombs pointed toward the western horizon, the realm where the sun fell back into Amun's arms. For in the end, every ruler, every god, every mortal flame bends toward the same truth. The hidden always outlasts the seen. And as the desert stretched endlessly beneath the burning sky, Amun-Ra watched, silent, unseen, eternal, the crown that needed no throne, the king that watched the kings. Amun was never just a god of the ancients. He was a mirror, and the reflection staring back has always been you. Before temples, before worship, before words carved his name into stone, Amun existed as the unseen force within all things. The Egyptians believed he lived in every breath, every thought that formed before speech. They said to know Amun was to know the part of yourself that moves the world without being seen. Because the truth is this, every human carries two selves, the one the world can touch, and the one it never will. Amun's story is not about thrones or divine power or golden light. It is about awareness, the kind that cannot be spoken, only felt. He teaches that what you reveal to the world is only half of who you are. The other half waits behind the noise, behind the masks you wear to be understood. Look at the sun. It shines, but only because darkness gives it contrast. Without the unseen, the seen means nothing. That is Amun's truth. That is your truth. You were never meant to live only in the visible world. You were meant to remember the one that breathes behind your eyes, the quiet realm where your thoughts are born, where your real strength begins. Amun ruled that realm not through light, but through presence. The same presence that sits in you when the world falls silent and your mind turns inward. They called him the Hidden One. But he was never hiding. He was teaching. Teaching that the greatest power is the one you don't need to display. That your worth does not depend on being seen or praised or understood. It depends on knowing yourself when no one is watching. Amun does not ask you to shine brighter. He asks you to see the source of your light, to recognize the quiet energy that builds your fire, the shadow that gives your brightness shape. Because light without shadow is emptiness. Sound without silence is chaos. A God without mystery is just a name. Amun's lesson is this: your shadow is not your weakness. It is your foundation, the place your strength sleeps until you have the courage to wake it. So when you walk through the noise of the world, remember the God who ruled through silence. Remember that the unseen within you is older than fear, older than doubt. It is the same force that lifted the sun over the horizon, and it lives behind your heartbeat. You are both the light that rises and the shadow that gives it meaning. And until you accept both, you have not yet seen yourself. Amun does not shout to be known. He does not command thunder nor carve his name across the sky. And yet, he moves everything. He wants you to understand this, that true power does not come from being seen. It comes from being certain. When the ancients called him the Hidden One, they were not speaking of absence. They were speaking of mastery. Amun was not unseen because he was gone. He was unseen because he chose to be. He understood that the most unshakable strength is the kind that doesn't need an audience. He teaches that your worth is not in the noise you make, but in the silence you command. The quiet moments when you pull back from the world, when your thoughts gather like dust before a storm. Those are the moments that shape you. That is where your power waits. The Egyptians built temples with chambers that led inward, each darker, each quieter. At the very heart, nothing. No idol, no light, only still air and the echo of breath. That emptiness was not a void. It was Amun, the invisible force that holds everything together. He wants you to embrace that same emptiness within yourself, the space between thoughts, the stillness behind your movement. That is your temple. That is where you rule. You were not meant to be loud in your becoming. The sun does not announce itself before it rises. It simply appears, and the world changes. Amun ruled through that kind of presence. The kind that cannot be contained because it does not seek to be known. He wants you to understand that disappearing is not defeat. It is alignment. To step out of sight is to return to your source, to the quiet fire that creates without asking to be recognized. The priests feared that fire. They hid his name because it reminded them of what they could never control. But you are not meant to fear it. You are meant to remember it, to move with the quiet certainty of the unseen God who never needed to prove his existence to command the world. When you stop chasing validation, when you stop begging to be understood, you begin to rise in ways no eye can follow. That is when you become like Amun, everywhere and nowhere, visible and infinite. Stillness is not emptiness, it is focus. It is the empire of your mind, the throne no one else can touch. So when the world grows loud and your light begins to flicker, remember him. Remember that the desert obeyed a God who never showed his face. That silence has its own language, and when you learn to listen to it, everything begins to answer back. Amun does not look at creation the way men do. He does not see mountains and rivers and stars. He sees thought before form, silence before sound. He does not ask what exists. He asks what must awaken. And that is how he wants you to look at yourself, not as what the world sees, not as what others call you, but as the unseen force that moves beneath your own name. You are not your reflection. You are the one who gives it shape. When Amun became Amun-Ra, he did not change. He spoke. He imagined himself into light. The hidden fire took form and the world began. That is his secret. Creation begins the moment the unseen dares to speak. He wants you to see yourself through that same lens. You are not small. You are not waiting for permission. You are the breath before the dawn, the silence that holds the power to ignite worlds. But you have forgotten what that silence feels like. You were taught to prove, to perform, to be seen. But Amun whispers the opposite, to become still, to imagine first, then to speak and let the world follow. Your words are not empty when they are born from stillness. Your actions carry weight when they come from the part of you that no one can touch. That is where true creation begins, not in noise, not in attention, but in awareness. He wants you to reclaim that power, to stop chasing your reflection and start shaping it, to remember that even the gods began as thoughts that refused to remain silent. The Egyptians carved his name in gold, yet they never gave him a face. Because Amun's truth was this: what is unseen defines what is undeniable. He does not ask you to vanish, he asks you to understand what makes you real. The balance he offers is sacred. Be unseen enough to remain free, but undeniable enough to shape your world. Be the quiet beneath your own fire. Speak only when your silence is ready to burn. When you walk through your days, remember Amun, the God who ruled without being seen, the voice that spoke existence into motion. He wants you to look at yourself as he looked upon creation, not as something waiting to be discovered, but as something waiting to awaken. Because you are not the shadow of your life, you are the fire that gave it form. You are the hidden flame behind your name, and when you remember that, the world remembers you. Every day, the same story unfolds across the sky. The sun rises, it rains, and it falls. To most, it is just light leaving the world. But to those who remember, it is the return of Amun-Ra to his hidden throne. He does not die. He withdraws. As the last ember sinks beneath the horizon, the desert grows still. The air cools and silence takes its rightful place again. This is the hour when his true kingdom wakes, the realm beneath light, where vision ends and knowing begins. They say Ra rules the day, but when the sun sets, Amun takes his crown back. The hidden half of the god reclaims what was always his. The priests once whispered that each sunset was not loss, it was restoration. The balance resetting itself, because even the brightest flame must bow to the dark that made it possible. Amun-Ra's story ends where it began, in silence, the unseen absorbing what the seen can no longer hold. Every golden ray that disappears over the dunes returns to him, like children returning to their source. The Egyptians did not fear this cycle, they revered it. For they knew that light is only a visitor, but the hidden endures. What decays is the image, what remains is the essence. That is Amun's final truth. Visibility is fleeting. Power is not in being watched, it is in watching. The gods rise, the kings fall, the empires crumble into dust, yet Amun remains untouched, sitting in the stillness beneath all sound. And that stillness is consciousness itself. He is the watcher behind your eyes, the quiet pulse beneath thought, the awareness that outlives every sunset of the soul. You cannot name him because he is the part of you that speaks before words exist. The ancients believed that at night the sun traveled through the underworld, guided by Amun's unseen hand, protected by the darkness he once ruled alone. Each dawn, Ra was reborn from that hidden fire, proof that death is only transformation, and silence is never the end. So when the light fades from your own life, when what you built in the open begins to fall away, remember this story. The power that seemed to vanish has not died. It has only gone home. Amun-Ra returns to his hidden throne every night, not in defeat, but in mastery. Because to vanish from sight is to reclaim the place no one else can reach. The unseen watches, the unseen endures, and when the first light of morning breaks again, it does so only because the hidden never slept. Amun-Ra, the watcher who never needed to be seen, remains. The throne was never lost. It was waiting all along, in the dark. If the story of Amun-Ra spoke to something silent within you, then let it be known. Leave your mark below. Like, comment, and subscribe. Your voice keeps these forgotten gods alive. The next light will rise soon, and you won't want to miss what waits beyond the horizon.